There was a young man, let's call him Tom Cruise, who spent 6 years studying English. 6 years of textbooks, vocabulary lists, grammar exercises, and online courses. He could read academic articles. He could understand English movies with no subtitles. And yet, the moment someone asked him a simple question in English, a real person in a real moment, something happened. His mind went blank. His throat tightened, and the words he had studied for 6 years simply refused to come out. What was wrong with him? Was his vocabulary too small? Was his grammar too weak? He didn't think so. So why did he freeze every single time? He believed the answer was somewhere in the next course, the next lesson, the next grammar book. So he kept studying and kept freezing, and kept wondering why fluency always felt just out of reach. Then, one evening, he met someone at a small gathering, a woman who had only been learning English for 2 years. Her grammar wasn't perfect. She made mistakes. She used simple words. But she spoke. She kept talking. She laughed when she made an error, corrected herself naturally, and continued the conversation. And by the end of the night, everyone in the room remembered her. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Tom Cruise stood quietly and watched, and he began to wonder, what does she know that I don't? That question is exactly what this video is about, because there is something that fluent English speakers understand, something most learners never figure out, and it has almost nothing to do with vocabulary size or grammar rules. Once you see it clearly, you will understand why some people speak confidently after 2 years, while others remain stuck after 10. But let's not rush to the answer, because like all important truths, this one needs to be understood properly, not just heard and forgotten. Think about how most people learn English. They study grammar charts until they can name every tense, they memorize word lists, they take tests, they correct every sentence in their heads before speaking. And that last habit, that checking, editing, perfecting, feels intelligent. It feels responsible. It feels like the right way to learn. But here is what nobody tells you. The brain does not work that way in real conversation. When you are speaking in real time, your brain cannot both construct a sentence and monitor it for errors simultaneously. Not at speed, not under social pressure, not while also listening to the other person. Trying to do all of that at once doesn't produce better English. It produces silence. It produces freezing. It produces that terrible moment where the words simply stop coming. Have you ever experienced that yourself? You know the word. You've seen it 100 times. But the moment you need it in front of someone, it disappears completely. That is not a vocabulary problem. That is a performance problem. And it has a very different solution. Here is something most learners never consider. Think about a musician who has practiced a song for months. They know every note. They can play it perfectly alone in a room. But the first time they perform in front of an audience, they tense up, their fingers hesitate, and they make mistakes they never made during practice. Did they suddenly forget the music? No. The pressure changed how their brain was operating. English speaking works exactly the same way. Knowing the language and performing the language are two completely different skills, and most learners only train one of them. This is where Tom Cruise was stuck. He had spent 6 years training knowledge, but he had almost no experience training performance, the ability to actually produce language in real conditions, under real pressure, in real conversations. And here is the part that surprises most people. Fluent speakers, the ones who seem effortlessly confident, are not necessarily the ones who made the fewest mistakes. They are the ones who learned not to let mistakes stop them. Picture 2 people at a job interview conducted in English. The first candidate is highly prepared. She has memorized strong answers, practiced her sentences, and planned exactly what she wants to say. Then the interviewer asks a slightly unexpected question. She pauses, she searches for the perfect sentence. The silence stretches. She finally says something, but her confidence is shaken, and the rest of the interview feels stiff and unnatural. The second candidate is less prepared in terms of memorized answers, but when the unexpected question arrives, she pauses briefly, says something simple like, "That's an interesting point. Let me think about that for a moment," and then continues speaking. Her grammar isn't flawless, but she keeps talking. She makes eye contact, she adapts. Which person leaves a stronger impression? Almost always the second one. Not because her English was more correct, but because she demonstrated something far more valuable: the ability to keep communicating when things don't go perfectly. This is one of the things fluent speakers know. Communication is not about perfection, it is about continuation. Now, you might be thinking, but surely grammar and vocabulary still matter. And of course they do. Nobody is saying they don't. But here is the critical difference. Fluent speakers learned grammar and vocabulary as tools for communication, not as obstacles to clear before they were allowed to speak. Most learners approach English as a test. They must pass before they earn the right to open their mouth. Fluent speakers approach it as a live skill that grows through constant use. That mental difference shapes everything. Think about a child learning to walk. They don't study the physics of balance before taking their first step. They stand up, fall down, stand up again, fall down again, and slowly, through repetition and failure, they find their balance. Nobody expects a child's first steps to be graceful. The falling is part of the learning. But when adults learn English, they expect their first conversations to be perfect. And when they aren't, when they forget a word, mispronounce something, or use the wrong tense, they feel embarrassed. They go quiet. They decide they need more practice before they try again, and then more and more, until speaking becomes something they are always preparing for, but never actually doing. Could this be the reason you still hesitate to speak? Not because you don't know enough, but because you're waiting to know enough before you begin? Here is the truth that the woman Tom Cruise observed that evening had already discovered. You do not get fluent and then start speaking. You start speaking, and that is how you become fluent. Every conversation, even a messy, imperfect one, is doing something that no textbook can do. It is training your brain to connect words to real situations, real emotions, real faces, real time pressure. It is teaching your tongue and your thoughts to work together under conditions that actually matter. And slowly, quietly, without you fully noticing, your brain begins to find the words faster. The hesitation gets shorter. The silences feel less frightening. But this only happens through action. It cannot happen through preparation alone. There is something else fluent speakers understand that most learners don't. Language is not a fixed structure you master once and carry forever. It is a living system you adjust constantly. Fluent speakers do this naturally. They simplify when they need to. They rephrase when a word escapes them. They use different angles to reach the same meaning. They are flexible. If a fluent speaker forgets the word approximately, they say around, or about, or close to. The meaning arrives. The conversation continues. They don't stand still, staring at the wall of their mind, waiting for the perfect word to appear. Do you freeze when you forget just one word? Most learners do. They treat that missing word as a wall, something that stops the entire sentence. But fluent speakers treat it as a small detour. They find another road and keep moving. This flexibility, this ability to rephrase, simplify, and adapt is not a talent. It is a habit, and habits are built through practice, not through waiting. Now, let's return to Tom Cruise. After that evening, something shifted in how he saw his situation. He realized he had been preparing to speak instead of actually speaking. He had been waiting to reach a level of English that would feel safe, a level where he wouldn't make mistakes, wouldn't hesitate, wouldn't embarrass himself. But that level doesn't exist. Not for anyone, not even for native speakers. What changed for Tom Cruise was not a new grammar lesson. It was not a new vocabulary list. It was a new understanding that fluency is not a destination you reach after enough studying. It is a relationship you build with the language through consistent, imperfect, real use. He started having small conversations, even when they were difficult. He started speaking before he felt ready, and he started accepting that imperfect sentences delivered consistently were worth far more than perfect sentences that never came out. And slowly, not overnight, but genuinely, steadily, something changed in his speaking. Not because he had learned more, but because he had finally started doing what fluent speakers have always done: communicating first, correcting later, and continuing no matter what. So, what do fluent English speakers know that most people don't? They know that the goal of language is never perfection. It is connection. They know that mistakes are not signs of failure. They are signs of someone actually trying. They know that confidence doesn't come before speaking. It comes from speaking. And they know that the most important thing you can do right now, today, with the English you already have, is to use it. Not later, not after one more lesson. Now. Start one conversation today, no matter how short, no matter how imperfect. Because every fluent speaker you have ever admired started exactly where you are standing right now. The only difference is they kept going. And so can you.